How to stop wasting your life. Carl Jung as therapist. Wake up before it's too late. In a world that never stops moving, many people feel like they are drifting through life on autopilot. The pressure to succeed, to stay connected, and to appear happy often hides a deeper emptiness. In this video, we explore the timeless insights of Carl Jung to understand why so many of us feel lost and what it truly means to wake up. With elegant narration and thought-provoking reflection, this episode invites you to pause, question, and reconnect with your deeper self. Whether you're struggling with anxiety, burnout, or simply searching for direction, this is a powerful call to return to what matters most. Stay with us. Waking up when it's too late. There comes a moment in life when a person stops, not because they have reached a destination, but because they realize they have been walking in circles. Carl Jung once warned of the greatest danger facing modern man: to wake up one day and discover that half his life has passed without ever having truly lived. This is not the dramatic tragedy of a collapsed empire or a lost fortune, but something quieter, more haunting: the slow erosion of meaning. Many people today move through life in a state of sleepwalking. They follow routines, meet expectations, and chase after comfort. But beneath the surface, something aches. They sense an emptiness they cannot name, a fatigue that no amount of rest can fix. It is the fatigue of a soul that has been ignored for too long. Jung believed that anxiety and depression often serve as signals. They are not random malfunctions, but warning lights on the dashboard of our inner life. When people feel lost, it is often because they are living in ways that betray their deeper values. They are not connected to anything that truly matters. They may appear successful or stable on the outside, yet inside they feel like actors in a play they never chose. The tragedy is not simply that they are suffering, but that they are unaware of why. Society often offers them distractions instead of answers. Pills, entertainment, social validation. These things dull the discomfort, but they do not resolve it. The deeper questions remain unanswered. Who am I really? Why am I here? What makes my life worth living? Waking up is painful but necessary. It is the moment when denial no longer works, when the soul demands to be heard. This awakening may begin with despair, but it leads toward clarity. In this clarity, one begins to see not only their own suffering, but the silent suffering of others. They realize that disconnection is not personal failure. It is a shared condition of the modern world. This is where transformation begins. When a person dares to face the emptiness instead of running from it, they take the first step toward a meaningful life. Not just for themselves, but for others. Because when one person wakes up, they remind others that they too are allowed to begin again. Anxiety does not come from a broken brain. In the modern world, anxiety has become a common diagnosis, often treated as if it were a chemical error to be corrected with medication. While medications may offer short-term relief, Carl Jung warned that relying solely on them risks ignoring the deeper reality of what anxiety truly is. To Jung, anxiety is not just a malfunction of the brain. It is a message from the soul, a sign that something fundamental in our way of living has gone wrong. Jung believed that many cases of anxiety and depression were not rooted in biology, but in a failure to live in alignment with one's inner truth. People feel anxious not because they are chemically broken, but because they are spiritually disconnected. They have been shaped by a culture that prioritizes success, speed, and surface-level happiness over depth, meaning, and connection. As a result, their inner world begins to rebel. Modern society encourages avoidance. If something feels uncomfortable, we are told to numb it, fix it quickly, or distract ourselves. But anxiety in its deeper form is not something to eliminate. It is something to listen to. It asks us to slow down, to examine our values, to question whether the life we are living truly reflects who we are. Jung observed that many people who came to him believed their suffering was purely physical. They had internalized the belief that psychological pain must be treated like a broken limb. But Jung challenged this. He invited his patients to explore their emotions not as symptoms to be suppressed, but as signals guiding them toward wholeness. This shift in perspective is radical. It means that healing is not about silencing the discomfort, but understanding it. It requires courage to admit that what we fear may be what we need to confront. Anxiety often points us toward unresolved conflicts, neglected desires, or a life that lacks authenticity. It is not our enemy. It is our inner self knocking on the door asking to be heard. To truly address anxiety, we must go beyond brain chemistry and into the terrain of meaning. We must ask not just how to feel better, but why we feel the way we do. Only then can we begin to build a life where the soul feels safe to rest. Suffering is necessary. Many people today live with the quiet belief that life should be easy, They chase comfort, avoid conflict, and mistake happiness for the absence of difficulty. But Carl Jung saw this mindset as one of the great illusions of modern life. He believed that suffering was not only unavoidable, but essential. To grow to change and to discover meaning, one must pass through discomfort, not around it. Jung told his patients that peace is not our natural state. Life is not designed to be effortless. Difficulty is not a punishment. It is a challenge built into the very structure of existence. When we try to escape it, we miss the chance to develop the strength we need to face life's inevitable trials. Suffering in this light is not the enemy. It is the teacher. Those who seek to avoid all pain often become weaker over time. Their ability to respond to adversity shrinks. They may become overly dependent on others, or on substances, or on distractions. They live on the surface of life, terrified of what lies beneath. But those who embrace struggle with courage and awareness begin to transform. They develop resilience, depth, and a grounded sense of who they are. Jung pointed out that the goal of therapy is not to remove all obstacles, but to help the person become strong enough to carry them. A life without hardship is not a gift. It is a missed opportunity for the soul to become fully alive. Through facing pain, we become more human, more connected to others, and more rooted in reality. Suffering also connects us to one another. When we recognize that others are carrying invisible burdens, we grow in compassion. We begin to see beyond appearances and touch the shared vulnerability of being human. This creates space for true connection, for relationships that are built not on perfection, but on mutual courage. To suffer is not to fail. It is to be awake. It is to be engaged in the real work of becoming. And when suffering is faced with open eyes and an open heart, it becomes something more than pain. It becomes purpose. Letting go of the past, living in the present. Many people believe that healing begins by uncovering the past, by digging into childhood memories, or tracing the origins of their pain. While this can offer insights, Carl Jung warned against becoming trapped in the past. He believed that excessive focus on where we came from can prevent us from facing where we are and where we need to go. The human mind has a tendency to seek explanations that place blame outside the present moment. It is easier to say we are broken because of something long ago than to admit that change is required now. Jung observed that people often look backward because the present demands effort. Looking to the past can become an excuse to delay the uncomfortable work of transformation. Jung challenged this mindset by asking his patients to return their attention to the present. What choices are you avoiding? What truth are you afraid to face? What life are you postponing while waiting for answers from yesterday? He believed that healing happens not by reliving the past, but by taking responsibility for today. This does not mean the past is irrelevant. It has shaped us. It contains our patterns, our wounds, and our stories. But it is not where life is happening. Life unfolds in the present, in the decisions we make now, and in the courage we show to act despite fear. The present moment is where freedom lives. It is where we can say yes to change, where we can interrupt the cycle of pain passed down through generations, where we can choose to no longer repeat the same mistakes. Jung encouraged his patients to stop waiting for a perfect moment and begin living deliberately even if they feel unready. Letting go of the past does not mean forgetting. It means refusing to be defined by what has already happened. It means releasing the belief that we must stay wounded in order to be real. The present is the only place where healing becomes action. It is where we reconnect with life, where we meet others, and where we finally meet ourselves. Facing the darkness within. Every person carries within them a hidden side, a part of the self that is often denied, repressed, or feared. Carl Jung called this the shadow. It contains the traits we find unacceptable, the emotions we avoid, and the truths we are not ready to face. But ignoring the shadow does not make it disappear. It only makes it stronger, acting out in unconscious and destructive ways. Jung believed that true healing requires confronting this inner darkness. When we refuse to see what is inside us, we give it the power to control us from the background. We may become reactive, bitter, jealous, or withdrawn without understanding why. The shadow is not limited to what is bad or immoral. Sometimes it includes strength, creativity, or assertiveness that we were taught to suppress. Facing the shadow takes courage. It means being honest about who we are when no one is watching. It means accepting that we are not always kind, that we sometimes judge, lie, or lash out. This is not about shame. It is about responsibility. Only when we recognize these patterns can we begin to change them. Awareness is the first step toward transformation. The process of facing the shadow also helps us understand others. When we see our own darkness clearly, we become less likely to judge others for theirs. We develop compassion not just for their wounds, but also for our shared human imperfection. This opens the door to more genuine relationships and deeper connection. Jung emphasized that what we push into the unconscious does not stay buried forever. Eventually, it erupts into our lives through conflict, illness, or crisis. Rather than wait for the explosion, we can choose to meet our shadow with open eyes. In doing so, we take back control. We become more whole, more grounded, and more capable of living authentically. The shadow is not a flaw. It is a part of us asking to be seen, understood, and integrated. When we stop running from it, we begin the real work of healing. Not by becoming perfect, but by becoming real. Living with purpose, living with meaning. Carl Jung believed that one of the deepest causes of suffering in the modern world is the absence of meaning. People can have material success, social status, and even good health, yet still feel empty. This is not because something is wrong with them, but because they have lost touch with a deeper sense of why they are alive. A life without meaning becomes a slow spiritual decay. To live with meaning is not about following a prescribed path. It is about discovering a role that feels true to who you are. Jung described it as finding one's place in the divine drama of life. For some, this role may be found through creativity, for others, through service family, or the pursuit of wisdom. What matters is not what the role looks like from the outside, but how deeply it resonates on the inside. Jung shared the story of a Pueblo chief who believed his tribe had the sacred duty of helping the sun rise each day. To modern ears, this may sound symbolic or naive, but Jung admired their sense of responsibility. Their lives were filled with purpose, not because they had more things, but because they saw themselves as part of something greater than the self. In contrast, Jung described a Western woman who spent her life traveling constantly searching for something she could never name. Despite her freedom and wealth, her eyes revealed a deep despair. She was not grounded in meaning. Her life was motion without direction. She did not see herself as belonging to anything. As a result, she lived in a constant state of spiritual hunger. Living with purpose is not a luxury. It is a psychological necessity. It anchors us when life becomes chaotic. It gives us the strength to endure suffering and the clarity to make difficult choices. Purpose connects us to others and to the world. It reminds us that our actions matter, that our existence is not random. Meaning is not something we find once and for all. It is something we build moment by moment through how we live, what we give, and what we stand for. To live with meaning is to live awake. Addicted to seeking a symptom of an empty life. In the modern world, seeking has become a way of life. People chase one goal after another, always hoping that the next achievement, possession, or experience will finally bring fulfillment. But Carl Jung saw this endless pursuit not as a sign of ambition, but as a symptom of spiritual emptiness. When we do not know who we are or why we live, we try to fill the void with constant motion. This kind of seeking is not driven by curiosity or passion. It is driven by fear. Fear of stillness. Fear of facing what lies beneath the noise. Jung observed that many people run not towards something meaningful but away from themselves. They are haunted by a deep sense that their life lacks substance, yet instead of turning inward, they turn to distraction. We see this everywhere. In compulsive travel, in the endless scroll of social media, in the hunger for recognition, or in the constant search for new relationships. The outward form may differ, but the inner state is the same. It is the state of disconnection of a self untethered from meaning. The seeker becomes trapped in a cycle where nothing is ever enough. Jung believed that healing begins when the seeker stops running. When we pause and ask what we are really looking for, we often discover it is not things but peace, not success but belonging, not pleasure but purpose. The irony is that what we truly seek cannot be found by chasing. It emerges when we stop and become present to our lives as they are. This shift requires courage. It means letting go of the fantasy that the next thing will save us. It means daring to feel the emptiness instead of escaping it. In that silence, something new can be born, a deeper connection to self, a return to authenticity, and a sense of meaning that does not depend on endless movement. To live meaningfully, we must learn to be still, to meet ourselves without distraction, to stop seeking and start being. Only then can we begin to fill the emptiness, not with noise, but with truth. Understanding others to heal yourself. Carl Jung believed that the path to self-understanding is deeply connected to how we relate to others. We often think that healing is a solitary journey, something we do in silence and isolation. But many of our wounds are created in relationships, and many of our insights arise through them. The people around us act as mirrors, reflecting parts of ourselves we cannot easily see. One way to explore our inner world is by observing our reactions to others. What qualities in people annoy us, trigger us, or cause discomfort? Often these responses point to aspects of our own shadow. We may dislike in others what we unconsciously suppress in ourselves. By becoming curious instead of judgmental, we open the door to greater self-awareness and empathy. Jung emphasized that projection is a common defense. When we see something in others that we reject in ourselves, we project it outward. This can distort our perception and harm our relationships. But when we take responsibility for our projections, we begin to see people more clearly. We learn to separate who they are from what we place upon them. Understanding others also deepens our capacity to connect. When we realize that everyone carries wounds, fears, and contradictions, we move from judgment to compassion. We stop expecting perfection and start valuing authenticity. This shift transforms the way we listen, speak, and relate. Healing is not just about self-reflection. It is also about learning how to be in the world with openness and honesty. When we engage with others from a place of awareness, relationships become a space for growth, not just comfort. We learn from conflict, grow through difference, and discover parts of ourselves we never knew existed. To understand others is to widen our view of what it means to be human. It helps us hold space for complexity, both in ourselves and in those we meet. In this space, healing becomes mutual. We begin to create relationships where both truth and tenderness can exist. And through these relationships, we become more whole. Healing is not a solitary path. The inner journey is tied to the community. In a world that celebrates independence, healing is often seen as something we must do alone. We are told to be strong, to figure it out ourselves, to carry our burdens in silence. But Carl Jung offered a different view. He believed that while inner work is deeply personal, it is never truly private. The path of healing, though inward, is shaped and supported by the community we live in. Our relationships reflect our wounds and our growth. The way we speak, listen, and show up for others reveals how far we have come in our own healing. Jung believed that the soul does not heal in isolation. It heals when it is seen, heard, and held in connection. Healing is not a retreat from others, but a deeper return to them with awareness. In many traditional cultures, healing was always a communal act. People gathered in circles, shared stories, and created rituals together. Pain was not hidden, but brought into the light, where it could be met with understanding rather than shame. Jung admired such practices because they honored both the individual and the group. They reminded people that no one suffers alone. Modern life often pushes us into isolation. We hide our pain behind screens, roles, or achievements. But the human spirit is not meant to heal in the dark. We need places where we can be real, places where vulnerability is welcomed, not judged, where our struggles are not seen as weakness, but as openings for compassion. Jung taught that healing involves returning to wholeness, and wholeness includes our place in the world. To heal is to rediscover our role in the greater web of life, to offer what we have learned not just for ourselves, but for others. When we bring our healed self into community, we become a light for those still walking through the dark. The journey inward is sacred, but its meaning expands when shared. In the presence of others, our healing becomes part of something larger than the self. It becomes a gift. The journey of healings is not about becoming perfect, but about becoming real. Through wounds, darkness, and connection, we learn to live with greater depth and meaning. Carl Jung reminds us that awakening does not come from avoiding pain, but from the courage to face it. When we heal, we do not only transform ourselves, we also help mend the world around us. Healing is a personal act, but it always carries collective value. And that is where life truly begins.